Today we want to discuss the properties of fulminated mercury and its use on the television series Breaking Bad.
In one of its most iconic scenes, chemistry teacher turned meth dealer Walter White
Heisenberg
offers to sell 50 grams of what is supposedly crystal meth to the headquarters of Tuco Salamanca.
Walter, unarmed and surrounded by Tuco's henchmen, calmly reveals that the crystals are not, in fact, meth. He flings a single crystal to the floor, causing an enormous explosion.
Boom! That leaves the room in shambles. However, everyone seems to be safe.
Walt explains later that the crystals are actually fulminated mercury, an explosive material sensitive to friction and shock.
It is typically prepared as a powder, and its crystallized form is said to be extremely difficult to create and too unstable to use in any situation.
In fact, real chemists believe that Walter's bag of crystals probably would have exploded long before he tried to use the single crystal.
And would have certainly killed him.
Since the 1820s, mercury fulminate in powder form was used as a trigger in blasting caps for large explosives like dynamite.
However, while dynamite can certainly do a lot of damage, mercury fulminate is only used as a primary explosive to detonate the larger secondary explosive.
A gram of mercury fulminate alone cannot create anywhere near as much destruction. Mercury fulminate was more commonly used in the 19th century firearms to ignite gunpowder.
But today, it has been replaced by the more stable, more longer-lasting, and less toxic chemicals.
Fulminated mercury is simple for a chemist to synthesize, as long as he or she isn't trying to make the crystals that Walt uses in the show. The process involves dissolving mercury metal in nitric acid to get mercury nitrate. Next, the solution is poured into a beaker of ethanol, causing a dramatic reaction involving violent boiling and white smoke.
Finally, we're left with a gray powder known as mercury fulminate. This powder will ignite to things such as
shock, sparks, heat, and friction. As volatile as it may be, Mythbusters showed that many more crystals and an incredibly strong throwing arm would be needed to create such an explosion.
Inside a makeshift office in the middle of the desert, the experts constructed a robotic throwing arm that flung a 50-gram bag of powder at a speed of 60 miles per hour, which is average speed like a human can throw at.
Nothing happened.
Then they primed the mercury with a blasting cap and set it off, but the small explosion only managed to injure the dummies inside the testing area.
Finally, they jacked up the amount of mercury to 250 grams, 5 times what Walt had in the bag, and it set off with a charge. The testing area was completely destroyed and the dummies were obliterated.
They concluded that the scenario could not have played out as it did in the show. And that concludes it, folks.